Alright guys, today we're going to be taking a look at Milwaukee's 3-inch compact cutoff toolkit. Now I really like these kind of tools because they're multi-dimensional, meaning you can cut a variety of different things, and that's always really helpful when you're on a project. So let's open up the box, take a look and see what's inside. The model number on this is 12V21XC, so in case you're interested, that's the number you need to look for at the store. Milwaukee did send us this cutoff tool, but we do not do paid reviews, and that's important for you to know. Let's open up the box. While we're doing that, I did want to mention that this is a brushless motor. So right off the bat, you can see this kit comes with a bag, which is always nice. As I've mentioned before, I love Milwaukee's bags. They're nice and sturdy. You get 3 different types of cutoff wheels. We'll go over these one by one. This is the M12 charger. This is kind of neat. This is a dust extraction system. They're becoming more popular because of OSHA regulations, but it's obviously a very nice safety feature as well. This is the M12 REDLINK XC 4.0 amp hour battery. So this is what you need to use with this cutoff tool. And then finally, this is the tool itself. As you can see, it's nice because you can just hold it with one hand. It's very petite, for lack of a better word. And I'm really excited to test this out and show you what it can or cannot do. One of the things I'm a little bit bummed about with this battery is there's no power indicator on it. Typically with Milwaukee batteries, there's a power indicator on the front. For example, this is a 5.0 amp hour battery, and if you press the button here, you can see how much power you have left. That's really, really important. Unfortunately, it's not on this XC 4.0 amp hour battery. So a little bit of wish that was there. On the cutoff tool itself, it has a wheel guard, which is great, and from what I can tell, the wheel guard is not removable. So on a typical, for example, angle grinder, you can remove this, although we leave ours on. There's a forward and reverse button here, so on the side. There's also a white indicator on the top of the tool that shows whether or not it's in forward, neutral, or the reverse position. I've never seen that before, but it's kind of a rudimentary way of showing that. The lockout button is in the front of the tool, so you have to press this and then turn the spindle until it engages. That way you'll be able to swap out or install one of the blades. The trigger's on the bottom of the tool, and what I like about this is it's very ergonomically easy to use. Now Milwaukee gives you 3 types of wheels with this kit. You have a diamond blade for cutting tile. You also get a metal cutoff wheel, and these are all 3 inches by the way. And then you get an abrasive wheel that's meant for cutting a variety of different materials. Actually, let me take a look. This is for drywall, fiber cement board, and plastic. And we're gonna test all 3 of these wheels on different types of materials. So don't worry, we're gonna get around to that. Now here's the deal, the maximum RPM for this tool is 20,000. Now that's quite a bit because most angle grinders, in fact, are only like 11 or 12 or 13,000. Really just depends on your angle grinder. So 20,000 RPMs, that's pretty impressive for this little tool. The other thing to remember is this can accommodate both 3/8 of an inch and 7/16 of an inch arbor size. And they give you an adapter here that you can put onto the tool for a 7/16 inch arbor. So we're gonna put the first blade on to this, and what we need to do is use the Allen wrench that they give to you. So there's a bolt. Actually, you want to turn this clockwise. There's a top flange, and then there's a bottom flange. You can leave the bottom flange on. Now the most important thing is to install these blades the right way. They have arrows on them that indicate the direction in which you need to put the blade onto the tool. Now because we're only going to be using this diamond blade in the forward direction, we're going to be lining up the arrow on the blade with the forward direction arrow. So it's really as simple as installing it like that. So you want this to snap into place over top of the spindle. Then you want to put your top flange on, and then this bolt. And to tighten the bolt, we're going to turn it counterclockwise. and we're just going to tighten it until it's nice and snug. And by the way, it's a best practice to not have the battery in the tool while you're putting the cutoff wheel in place. So one of the biggest questions I had was, how do you put the dust shoe assembly on this little tiny tool? Well, I'm going to show you. Inside the dust shoe assembly, there's a little red tab. This sticks out, and when the dust shoe assembly is installed correctly, that little red tab engages with the slot in this wheel guard. So really the first step is to understand the orientation of the dust shoe assembly, and this is how it should look. You should have the port facing the front of the tool, and then the tool needs to slide into the dust shoe assembly, and you want to slide the tool backwards so that that little slot in the wheel guard is engaged by that red tab. There really isn't much to it, and you won't feel a lot of movement. You'll just feel a subtle engagement of that tab. So that's really all there is to it. And now that it's engaged, you're good to go. Now if you want to remove this dust shoe assembly, you press down on the red tab here. And what that does is pulls that red tab inward, and then you can disengage the wheel guard from the dust shoe assembly. But for now, we're just going to re-engage that, because we want to use the dust shoe assembly. Overall, it's a pretty slick assembly, and once you do it a few times, it becomes pretty easy to take the dust shoe on and off. One of the things I forgot to just mention though is you want to have the depth of cut at its maximum distance to install the dust shoe assembly onto the tool. So really there's just a wing nut back here. You loosen it and you can move this depth of cut up and down. The other great thing is there are increments on the back of this depth of cut, and those align with the arrow on the side here. So you can easily adjust your depth of cut depending on the type of material that you're using. So for example, if you're cutting 1/4 inch thick tile, you can just simply loosen this nut and adjust the depth of cut to just a little bit more than a 1/4 inch. But the nice thing is that this is easily adjustable, and you can put it anywhere you want, up to looks to be like about 3/4 inch. So there you go, that's how you adjust the depth of cut, and that's really nice to have when you're cutting tile. We're going to start making cuts into porcelain and ceramic tile, but before we do that, always make sure you have your safety gear. So hearing protection, safety glasses, gloves, and if you're not going to be using the dust shoe, then get yourself a silica dust respirator. We really like these ones by Sunstrom. They're awesome. They don't do so well for those of us with facial hair, but definitely worth the 50 bucks. The first test we're going to do with the cutoff tool and that diamond blade is on a 12 by 12 inch piece of 3/8 inch porcelain tile. This is a very, very hard tile, so we're just going to make a straight cut through it and see how it does. And by the way, we are going to have this hooked up to a shop vac while we're doing the cutting. The battery installation is very easy. You just simply push it in until you hear the click and you're good to go. So this is a 1/4 inch shop vac hose that we connected to the port here. So it's in there pretty snug. If I had my druthers, I'd put some type of Fernco system on this to keep it nice and secure, but it is pretty tight and it's on a swivel, so we'll see how it performs as is. I'm personally obsessed with electronic brakes. Check out this one. Not too shabby, right? So that's a really nice safety feature. We're just going to be using a very affordable shop vac on this. Obviously you can get an expensive HEPA vac too, which we love, but we're going to use this 3.0 horsepower shop vac. So this first cut is just a straight cut through the 3/8 inch porcelain. As you can see here, there's still a lot of dust shooting up from the cutoff tool. That's mostly a function of the shop vac. It was a little bit of a struggle to cut through this porcelain, and one of the things that I'd like to highlight is the fact that the blade may need to be worn in, but in this particular case it was a little bit more difficult to cut through than it would be with a traditional angle grinder. As you can see here, we struggled until the end to make that cut, so it just took a little bit longer than I anticipated. Here's my first impression cutting through this porcelain. The tool seems like it has a lot of power, but the electronics shut it down whenever it starts to overheat or whenever it starts to really become pressured by the load that it needs to cut through the tile. So in terms of long cuts, I'm not so sure about that. But now here's the deal. This is just a 3-inch blade too. Typically when we cut through tiles, those blades are a minimum of 4.5 inches. So where a 3-inch blade comes in handy though is cutting through tile for electrical outlets. So let's see how this cutoff tool works for that. The other thing I wanted to mention, as you probably saw, this shop vac didn't do the best at extracting all that dust. Definitely try to use a HEPA vac for that.
With a traditional angle grinder, it's a little bit difficult to cut out a typical electrical box just because of the size of a 4.5-inch angle grinder blade. So the 3-inch blade for this cutoff tool is perfect for this type of project. And as you can see here, we're working our way through the cut of this porcelain tile. It's pretty easy to cut through it, and definitely I highly recommend the cutoff tool for this type of project. The blade could handle the porcelain in short cuts and short bursts. It's just that whenever it's a straight long cut, I feel like the cutoff tool and the blade struggle a little bit. But in this particular case, I love the 3-inch blade and the fact that you can complete the cut on the back side of the tile.
So as you saw, it was pretty easy to cut out the dimension for the electrical box. The only problem, well, there are a few different problems here. The blade is not that great that Milwaukee supplies. As you can see, there's chipping in this porcelain along the edge here. Not too much of an issue with an electrical outlet because the cover will hide that. But the other issue with this cutoff tool is the small wheel guard here. On a traditional 4.5-inch angle grinder, the wheel guard is much more substantial because it's a 4.5-inch blade. This is very tiny, and I highly recommend that you wear at least some type of eye protection, if not full face protection, because I was getting shot at by a bunch of different pieces of porcelain, slivers of porcelain. So be very, very careful if you're cutting porcelain or ceramic with this. It will cut through it. Does it make a perfect cut with the blade Milwaukee provides? Absolutely not. I think that one of the biggest recommendations I have for Milwaukee is to come out with different types of blades that work a lot better with porcelain and ceramic. The next test is going to be with the Carbide abrasive wheel. This is a little tiny beast, and it's used for cutting through drywall, fiber cement board, and plastic. So things like ABS and PVC. So remember how at the beginning of the video I said I was upset about the battery indicator? Well, it's actually on the tool. So you got to press the trigger, and that lights up the battery indicator right here. So kudos to Milwaukee for putting the battery indicator on the tool, even though it's not on the battery. So this is a test that we're going to be doing to just cut out a little electrical outlet spot and a piece of cement board. In this case, this was Durock, and it has a waterproofing liquid membrane over top of it. So that's just to add a little bit more complexity to the test. So let's cut this out.
So we started the cut on the top surface with the liquid waterproofing membrane. By the way, this is Ardex 8+9, so it's a pretty heavy duty liquid membrane. But as you can see here, the cutoff tool and the cutoff wheel do a really great job of cutting right through the surface of this. It does create dust, no doubt, so if you can put the dust shroud onto the tool, that's best, and I would highly recommend that you do that if you have to make a lot of cuts through cement board. But obviously you don't necessarily need this tool to cut through cement board, it's just something that's going to speed up that process. Nonetheless, it really did very, very well with this CBU.
I gotta say, I'm impressed with the cutoff wheel and the tool cutting through the cement board. No problem whatsoever. So what's gonna be our next test? Let's cut through a piece of PVC, because oftentimes when you're demoing things, you just want to be able to cut through the PVC, or if you just need a short piece of pipe. So we're going to grab PVC and do that test. By the way, that was a 1/2-inch piece of cement board, and this is a 2-inch piece of PVC. So we're going to cut through this.
As you can see here, we're cutting right through the 2-inch piece of PVC, no problem whatsoever. Make sure you, this is a no-brainer, but make sure you hold on to the pipe nice and tight if you're in a situation like this one here. If you're just going to be demoing, then obviously you got to make sure that the pipe is secured and you can make a nice clean cut and you can bond another piece of PVC. But I felt that this cutoff tool did a really nice job of cutting through, and you can actually clean up the cut too fairly easily, so if you need to square that off, not a problem whatsoever. This is another angle of a cut, so this one's sped up, obviously, but as you can see here, the tool doesn't have any issues cutting through PVC, and I really liked how it performed.
So no problem cutting through the plastic. The only issue is, unlike with Sawzalls, you can't go right through the entire thing. You have to rotate the pipe, but nonetheless, it's a great little cutoff tool for that. So the next test is going to be on a variety of different types of non-ferrous metals. So we're going to be cutting through copper, some conduit, and a U-channel that we use for putting in glass doors and glass panels. We're going to put the metal cutoff blade onto the cutoff tool for these tests. Metal test number 1, 1-inch Type L copper. Overall, it did cut very well through the copper. I'd love to know what your thoughts are though, so let us know in the comments. Oh, and before I forget, the unfortunate thing about the kit is it only comes with 1 battery. So I'd love to see Milwaukee come out with a kit that has 2 batteries, and maybe there is one, I just don't know about it. But only having 1 battery with a tool is really, really tough. Especially because I have a bunch of different Milwaukee tools, but I don't have that 4.0 amp hour XC battery that is needed for the cutoff tool. So, gotta wait for it to charge.
So this is Conduit, and as you can see here, it doesn't take long for the cutoff tool to go right through it. And I think this is a testament not only to the power of the tool, but also the blade that comes along with it.
Okay, that was pretty fast. Definitely no problem cutting through the conduit. Now, the last test that I want to do is on a piece of U-channel. This is the U-channel that we use to put in glass doors and glass panels for showers. So let's see how the cutoff tool does for that. I would highly recommend using this cutoff tool for a U-channel because it made a clean cut. All you have to do is make it look a little bit nicer using a file. But you'd have to do that anyway if you cut this on a miter saw. Okay, so what are the final thoughts for this tool? Where do you get it and what is the price? Final thought is this: if you're just doing electrical outlet cuts in porcelain or ceramic tile, this is a great tool for that. If you need to make longer cuts, I would say it's not really quite where I would want it to be, and I highly recommend Milwaukee come out with different blades for this, because trying to find a 3-inch blade for a cutoff tool is really, really difficult. What about cutting through things like metal and conduit and plastic? Well, this cutoff tool excels at that. So if you're going to be using it for those purposes, I highly recommend it. Now, what is the cost and where do you find it? It's about 130 bucks for the tool only, about $199 for the kit that we just reviewed in this video. So it's definitely not a cheap tool, but it's very solid, 20,000 RPMs, plenty of power. You just need to know that it does have limitations with the 3-inch blade, and definitely wear your safety gear when you're using it, especially with tile. Let us know what your thoughts are on this down in the comments. We're always open to different tips and tricks on how to use these tools, so if you have one and you've used it, let us know what your thoughts are down in the comments section. Thanks for watching this video, and we'll see you in the next one.